You're looking at a middle schooler, right? Just picture them staring at a whiteboard, completely zoning out.
Right, totally disengaged.
Yeah, and they're picking at a scab on their arm until it literally bleeds. And society tells us, this kid is fidgety.
Oh, absolutely. The classic bad habit label.
Exactly. People think they lack discipline or they just need a really firm scolding. Like, just tell them to sit still, stop picking, and that is the end of it.
If only it were that simple.
Right. Okay, so let's unpack this today. Because the reality of the situation, that child's brain is actually in a state of profound neurological distress.
Yeah, it really is.
And telling them to just quit is actively making the damage worse.
It's a startling realization for a lot of people, honestly.
I bet.
Because when you look closely at the clinical data we have, what appears to be the simple, annoying habit to, an untrained observer, it's actually a highly complex, recognized clinical condition.
And that right there is exactly the mission of our deep dive today. Welcome in, everyone.
Glad to be here.
First, we are going to completely dismantle this pervasive, honestly shame-inducing myth about children's behavior. We want to show you the actual science of what is happening.
And the science is fascinating.
It really is. And second, we're going to explore how we can actually fix this on a large scale. Specifically, we're looking at a really incredible systemic mental health solution that is rolling out in Georgia schools literally right now to address issues exactly like this one.
It's a profoundly important shift, I think. We are moving from this culture of judgment to a culture of clinical understanding.
Yeah.
And as we will see, that shift can completely change a student's trajectory in life.
So let's start with the behavior itself, because I have to admit, my initial reaction to this, well, it was a bit of skepticism.
That's completely natural.
Right, because I grew up in an era where, if you picked at your skin or you bit your nails or tapped your foot endlessly, you just got a slap on the wrist.
Oh, yeah, or a harsh word from a teacher.
Exactly, and that was that. So how do we actually draw the line between a kid who genuinely just have a mindless habit they need to break and a child experiencing this neurological distress you just mentioned?
It's a totally fair question, and the distinction, it really lies entirely in the nervous system.
Okay.
The clinical research categorizes the specific behavior as a body-focused repetitive behavior, or a BFRB for short.
BFRB, got it.
Yeah. It even has a specific clinical diagnosis. It's called Pediatric Excoriation disorder, though a lot of people just call it skin picking disorder.
So it's an actual diagnosable thing.
Exactly, because a standard habit like tapping your foot is something you do mindlessly that can usually be broken with just a bit of conscious effort,
Like a quick reminder to stop.
Right, but excoriation disorder is deeply, deeply tethered to the body's threat response.
Wow.
And the data shows it frequently emerges right around adolescence.
Which makes sense. I mean, middle school is chaos.
Total chaos. Adolescence is this period of massive hormonal, social, and neurological transition. So the clinical data specifically highlights that this disorder can accompany anxiety or OCD spectrum conditions.
Okay, so telling a child with this disorder to just sit still, it's basically like putting a lid on a boiling pot and demanding it stop rattling.
That is a perfect analogy.
Because you haven't turned down the heat, right? The heat is the underlying anxiety.
Yes.
So the internal pressure is just going to find another, probably more damaging way to escape. You just can't command a neurological condition to vanish with willpower.
You really can't. And what's fascinating here is how the behavior actually acts as a pressure release valve.
A release valve.
Yeah. So the skin picking is a physical manifestation of that internal distress. It is the brain desperately trying to regulate an overwhelming system.
That is wild to think about.
When that internal pressure cooker of middle school or high school gets too intense, the nervous system just looks for an outlet.
Which brings us to what this actually looks and feels like for the child. Because it involves this brutal cycle of relief and shame, doesn't it?
It really does.
The clinical observations in our sources show this involves recurrent picking, very often on the face, the arms, or the hands, and it leads to actual visible sores.
Or scarring.
Yeah, scarring.
Yeah.
And it causes genuine, profound distress for the child. But here's the part that I think is just the most heartbreaking.
What's that?
They experience this distress even when they truly, genuinely want to stop.
Yes, the desire to stop is there.
So if they want to stop and it's causing them physical pain and visible scarring, why can't they?
Well, The answer lies in the neurology of the behavior itself.
Okay, lay it on me.
The research provides this brilliant phrase to explain the mechanism. It says the picking usually provides a brief flicker of relief.
A brief flicker of relief, wow.
That phrase is the absolute key to understanding excoriation disorder.
Because it's giving them something positive in that moment.
Exactly. When the child picks at their skin, their brain is receiving a tiny, immediate neurological reward. It's like a micro dose of relief from the overwhelming anxiety or that OCD spectrum loop they are trapped in.
So their brain is essentially using the physical sensation of picking to hijack the anxiety loop,
Yes.
just for a split second,
Exactly. It's a completely maladaptive coping mechanism.
because of what comes after.
Right, because that brief flicker of relief is immediately followed by a wave of intense shame and physical damage.
It's so sad.
It is. And this is exactly why the just quit approach completely fails.
Yeah.
I mean, you cannot fight a deeply ingrained neurological reward system with mere willpower.
Let alone the still developing willpower of a teenager.
Right. So when an adult scolds them, it doesn't actually stop the behavior. It just deepens the child's embarrassment.
Which causes more stress.
Exactly. That scolding fuels the underlying anxiety, which ironically makes their brain demand that flicker of relief even more.
It is a vicious, self-sustaining cycle.
It really is.
The scolding causes more anxiety. The anxiety requires more relief. The relief comes from picking. The picking causes visible damage. And then, the damage causes more shame.
You nailed it.
And if you are a parent or a teacher listening to this right now, you've probably seen the visible signs of this cycle in the wild.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, obviously there are the scabs and the healing wounds,
Yeah.
but it's the behavioral signs that really stick out to me from the research.
Like what?
Like, the child might use bandages constantly or wear long sleeves in the dead of summer, specifically to hide the spots on their arms.
Yes, the hiding.
When you understand the mechanism, you realize they are not using those bandages for first aid. They are using them as emotional camouflage.
Emotional camouflage. That is a very astute way to look at it.
They are just trying to hide their shame from the world.
They are. And the research highlights a very specific trigger that educators actually see all the time.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Picking during reading?
Reading. Why reading? Because reading requires sustained focus. You have to sit entirely still, and you're processing complex information.
Oh, I see.
All of those things massively increase the cognitive load.
And that's a trigger.
Right. For a child with underlying anxiety or an OCD spectrum condition, that cognitive load can be inherently dysregulating.
So the stress just spikes.
Yep. The internal tension rises, and the hand just automatically goes to the face or the arm to find that brief flicker of relief, literally just to help them endure the task of reading the page.
That is so incredibly eliminating. I mean, imagine being a teacher and seeing a kid picking their arm while reading a book.
Right. What do you usually think?
The old myth tells you they are distracted, they're fidgety, they're disrespecting the classroom environment. So you call them out in front of everyone.
Which is the worst thing you can do.
Exactly, because the clinical reality tells you they are actually experiencing a massive spike in anxiety, and their brain is just desperately trying to regulate itself so they can actually finish the reading assignment you gave them.
And by calling them out, the teacher inadvertently spikes the stress even further,
Making it worse.
reinforcing the very behavior they want to stop. This is why understanding this underlying mechanism is absolutely critical.
It really changes everything.
It moves us away from punitive measures and toward actual effective intervention.
Okay, so let's talk about that intervention.
Yeah.
If willpower fails and scolding actively makes the neurological damage worse, what does a successful intervention even look like?
It's a great question.
Because we obviously cannot just leave a child trapped in a cycle of distress and scarring.
No, and we don't have to. The clinical data is very, very clear on this point.
Okay,
This condition responds exceptionally well to real evidence-based treatment.
that's great news.
Specifically, clinicians utilize something called habit reversal training, or HRT, alongside a comprehensive behavioral approach.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting to me. The source material says these therapies help children recognize their triggers. And I love this phrase, build gentler responses.
Build gentler responses, yes.
Just think about the profound shift in language there. We are moving from the harsh, punitive language of scolding and just quit to the empathy and care of helping a child build a gentler response.
It completely changes the dynamic.
But I do have to ask, how does a gentler response actually fix the problem? Doesn't habit reversal training just mean we are back to trying to, break a habit?
I understand why it sounds that way, but the mechanism is entirely different from just trying to suppress an urge.
How so?
Well, HRT doesn't rely on simply telling the child to stop. Instead, it relies on building profound, granular self-awareness.
Okay, so noticing what they're doing.
Exactly. The child works with the clinician to map out exactly when, where, and how the picking happens. They identify the highly specific triggers.
Like the reading example.
Right. Is it the moment the teacher asks everyone to open a book? Is it a specific type of social pressure in the cafeteria?
Got it.
Once they recognize that exact trigger, that's when they deploy the gentler response.
And what does that look like?
This means giving the brain and the hands an alternative action, something that competes with the picking but doesn't cause physical harm.
So, if the trigger happens and the internal tension rises, instead of the hand going to the face to pick, the child is trained to execute a competing response.
Exactly.
Like what would they do?
They might cross their arms really tightly, or clench their fists, or even use a specific tactile object that provides a safe sensory input.
But wait, aren't they just distracting themselves at that point?
No, and this is where the science of neuroplasticity comes in. This is the cool part.
Okay, I'm listening.
When the child uses that safe tactile object instead of picking, they aren't just distracted. They are actively starving the old neural pathway of its reward.
Oh, wow.
Over time, because the brain is no longer receiving that specific flicker of relief from the skin picking, it just stops associating picking with anxiety regulation.
That makes so much sense.
It starts seeking out the gentler sensory input instead. It is literal neurological rewiring.
That is incredible. They are essentially starving the destructive pathway and feeding a healthy one.
Precisely. But there's a crucial caveat in the clinical approach here.
Which is?
You cannot just treat the physical symptom.
Right, the root cause.
Exactly. These behavioral therapies must be implemented alongside support for the underlying anxiety.
Because if you don't turn down the heat on the boiling pot,
the lid still rattles. If you only give a child a gentler physical response, but you leave the raging anxiety or the OCD spectrum condition entirely untreated, the internal pressure will eventually overwhelm the new behavior.
it'll just find a new outlet.
Exactly. You have to treat the root cause. And this is why a diagnosis and subsequent treatment must come from a licensed clinician.
Because it's not just a bad habit.
Right. You need a professional who actually understands the complex interplay between physical behavior and neurological distress.
And the data shows that with clinical understanding rather than scolding, children make genuine progress. They can actually break the cycle.
They really can.
But, okay, that brings up a massive logistical hurdle.
Yeah, the access issue.
Right. So what does this all actually mean for you, the average family listening? Because as a parent or teacher, knowing the clinical fix is only half the battle.
No, often less than half.
The reality of the traditional healthcare system is a labyrinth. I mean, wait lists for specialized pediatric therapists can be, 6 to 8 months long?
Easily, sometimes longer.
And the out-of-pocket costs are just astronomical.
It prices most families out entirely.
So if a kid's primary trigger is reading class at 10:00 a.m. on a Tuesday, how on earth does a family navigate this broken system to get them specialized habit reversal training?
That logistical nightmare is precisely why so many children fall through the cracks.
It is awful.
It creates a massive gap between knowing a child needs help and actually getting them that help. This brings us directly to the systemic safety net that is currently being rolled out.
Right, MentalSpace school.
Exactly. This is a framework specifically designed to bypass those traditional barriers to care you just mentioned.
Let's really look at what MentalSpace school is actually doing here, because the barrier removal is staggering.
It really is.
It is a K-12 mental health support system operating right inside Georgia schools. And they provide same-day teletherapy.
Same day.
Let that sink in for a second. Same day. A child is having a crisis, they're caught in a severe anxiety loop, and instead of a referral that takes half a year, they speak to a professional that exact same day.
And it's not just some random telehealth hotline either.
Right. Schools get dedicated therapist teams. But the part that absolutely stopped me in my tracks, the financial accessibility.
Oh, this is huge.
Medicaid is $0. $0.
The impact of that cannot be overstated. I mean, if you are a single parent already stretched to the breaking point, you don't have to choose between buying groceries and getting your child help for excoriation disorder.
Exactly. And they accept a massive list of other insurances too, so it is universally accessible.
Yeah, they take almost everything.
According to the source, they accept Blue Cross, Blue Shield, Cigna, Aetna, United Healthcare, Humana, Peach State, Care Source, and AmeriGroup.
They have built this to be actually usable for the real world.
Seriously.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, what MentalSpace School is providing is a comprehensive ecosystem of care.
An ecosystem, right.
They are not just treating the individual student in isolation. By integrating directly into the school environment, they offer crisis intervention, suicide and violence prevention, staff wellness, and even family counseling.
Wow, so the whole community.
They are treating the entire environment that the child exists in. And crucially, the providers doing this work are licensed, diverse therapists who are culturally competent.
So why does that cultural competency piece matter so much in a school setting?
Well, because the shame and stigma surrounding mental health and specifically visible behaviors like skin picking, they are not uniform.
That makes sense.
They vary drastically across different cultural backgrounds. What might be viewed as a medical issue in one household, well, it might be viewed as a profound moral failing or a source of deep familial shame in another.
Oh, I see.
So a therapist has to understand those cultural nuances to effectively build trust with a marginalized student before they can even begin something as complex as habit reversal training.
And all of this specialized care is HIPAA and FERPA compliant too.
Yes, strictly compliant.
For anyone unfamiliar with those acronyms, it essentially means the student's medical and educational privacy is completely locked down.
Very important for teens.
The child can receive care without their private struggles becoming public knowledge. But there's a massive ticking clock surrounding all of this that we need to talk about.
Yes, the state mandate.
The stakes here are incredibly high right now because of a Georgia state mandate called House Bill 268.
HB 268.
This mandate essentially tells schools, you must have concrete, functional mental health safety nets in place for your students, and the deadline to comply is July 2026.
And today is June 15th, 2026.
That deadline is literally next month.
The urgency is immense. School administrators across Georgia are right now scrambling to ensure they have adequate mental health infrastructures in place to meet that mandate.
Which is where MentalSpace comes in.
Exactly.
Right.
MentalSpace School isn't just helping them check a legislative box. They are ripping out the traditional waiting lists and putting an expert therapist right into the school building.
It's brilliant.
But beyond the legislative compliance, look at the actual clinical and educational outcomes this system produces. This is where the synthesis of everything we have discussed really happens.
Oh, the outcomes are what really prove the model. The data shows an 89% improved attendance rate,
89%.
a 92% reduction in anxiety, and an 85% family satisfaction rate.
Whoa!
Let's unpack the causality there, though. Why does treating something like excoriation disorder or its underlying anxiety lead to an 89% improvement in the school's attendance rate?
It goes back to the shame we talked about earlier.
Right.
Because when a child is trapped in a cycle of picking, bleeding, and profound shame, school becomes a place of terror.
They just don't want to be there.
They don't want to be seen. They don't want to be scolded by a teacher who thinks they're just being fidgety, so they simply avoid the environment altogether.
Right. They try to use the emotional camouflage, the long sleeves and the bandages. But when the camouflage fails and the shame is just too much, they just stay home.
Exactly. But when you introduce a systemic safety net, like MentalSpace School, everything changes.
Because they finally get help.
Where a licensed, culturally competent clinician provides same-day teletherapy, where they use habit reversal training to rewire the brain instead of using punishment.
And the anxiety drops.
Where they reduce the underlying anxiety by a staggering 92%. When you do all that, you remove the shame.
And when you remove the shame,
the child can actually show up to class. They can focus on reading instead of scanning the room to see who is judging their skin. The entire school ecosystem improves.
It is a perfect feedback loop of positive reinforcement, completely replacing that vicious cycle of shame we talked about earlier.
It really is beautiful to see.
And for any educators, administrators, or parents listening in Georgia who are staring down that July 2026 House Bill 268 deadline, the pathway to access this is remarkably simple.
Just reach out to them.
You can go directly to mentalspaceschool.com, or you can email them at mentalspaceschool@teachetstherapy.com. The infrastructure is built, it is compliant, and it is ready to be utilized right now.
It is a remarkable example of structural empathy.
Structural empathy, I love that.
We are taking a deep clinical understanding of a marginalized, misunderstood condition, and we're building a system that delivers the solution directly to the point of need.
It really is. Well, as we wrap up this deep dive, let's just briefly reflect on the journey we've taken today.
We covered a lot of ground.
We did. We started by dismantling that harmful, old-school myth that a kid picking their skin is just fidgety and needs a firm talking to.
Thankfully, we know better now.
Right. We ventured into the clinical reality of pediatric excoriation disorder, recognizing it as a body-focused repetitive behavior deeply tied to the neurological chaos of adolescence, underlying anxiety, and OCD spectrum conditions.
Which is such a vital distinction.
Then we explored the heartbreaking mechanics of it, that brief flicker of relief that hijacks the nervous system and makes scolding so completely, actively harmful.
The cycle of shame.
Exactly. And finally, we looked at how comprehensive accessible therapy networks like MentalSpace School in Georgia are bypassing the broken healthcare system to use evidence-based treatments.
Right where the kids actually are.
They're helping kids build gentler responses, fundamentally transforming their ability to show up and thrive in school without shame.
Which is really the ultimate goal. And, this raises an important question for everyone listening.
Let's hear it.
We have seen the data. Replacing scolding with clinical understanding and targeted neuroplastic therapy leads to a staggering 89% improvement in school attendance and a 92% reduction in anxiety.
Massive numbers.
So, as you look around your own world today, what other misunderstood bad habits in our classrooms, or even in our workplaces, are actually just desperate, unrecognized cries for a brief flicker of relief?
Wow. That is exactly the question we want you to take with you. How can we look past the surface behavior and understand the underlying neurological need?
It changes how you see everyone.
It really does. Thank you for going on this journey with us. As you move through your week, whether you are dealing with a struggling child, a colleague, or even your own internal pressure, remember to drop the scolding and always look for the gentler responses.